Hey, what is up everyone? It's Emily and welcome back to my channel. It is September, which means to me at least that it is officially fall, and I am so excited for my video today. I'm going to share with you some of my favorite fall books. I've got a few classics mixed in here and then a couple of newer releases, and honestly, these are just my personal opinions. It's based entirely off of the vibes that I get from them and kind of what I enjoy to read during this time of year. These are all books that I've read, although some of them it's been so long since I've touched them. So I have 10 books for you today. Most of them are on the not so scary side, and it just has to do more with the kind of essence that this time of year has, and then some of the other ones are more on the creepier, scarier side, so I will let you know about those ones as well. So let's get to it. Anyone who has been watching my channel for any amount of time knows that I am a huge fan of the book Coraline. I always have to recommend this one every single fall because it is just the perfect book that is equal amounts creepy and whimsical. Reading this book is such a thrill and fun ride. I might reread this one this fall, we'll see. But if you don't know Coraline, it's written by Neil Gaiman, and it is about a young girl named Coraline, and she moves into this big house complex with her parents. And while she's there, she finds this hidden small door and goes through it and is kind of in another parallel world. I don't want to be too specific, but it's very creepy, and Neil Gaiman is the master of this creepy, whimsical feeling in his books. It is middle grade, so it's a really easy read while still giving you that kind of spine-tingling feeling up your back. In the same idea of spine-tingling novels, I will also recommend Bird Box, which I read, I think last year in the fall, maybe the year before. It was a little bit after the movie came out, and this book is so short and so thrilling, and if you liked the movie, you will like the book. I mean, the book is probably better than the movie in my opinion, because it's all in your head, right? You can visualize or not visualize what's going on. If you don't know the book or movie, it takes place in a kind of future world in which something, we don't really know what, is killing people. This one's a bit scarier, on the scarier side, so this is probably the scariest one I'll recommend in terms of murder and gore and stuff like that. The only way to get around this is if you don't look at the thing that causes people to unalive themselves. And so our main character is blindfolded for most of the book, and it goes back and forth between this journey that she's making with two young children on a river blindfolded, and also what has led up to this point. And I will just say, I really thought the book was great. The movie is a pretty faithful adaptation, so if you aren't interested in reading that and you are looking for a fairly scary movie, Bird Box is a really good one. My last kind of really scary book is going to be House of Leaves, which I am about 3/4 of the way through right now, and I feel like it's not too early to recommend this one because it is a doozy. I think this is a book that will take people a really long time to read because it's dense. Why don't I just show you? So this is my copy of House of Leaves, and when you look at it from the outside, it's that's not so bad. It's a little bit thick, but whatever. I just want you to know this book is 5 pounds, I swear. But when you open it, you notice just how many words there are, and they're very close together, and it's pretty hard to read. But on top of that, a lot of it is in foreign languages or backwards or in Braille. I don't know if you can see that. There's also this whole crazy section with the squares and the backwards words, and parts of the footnotes are upside down. It's a little bit of a thrill. It's a little bit wild to read. I will say I started reading it yesterday though, and I really could not put it down once I started getting into it. It is a hard read though, so I'm just putting that up front. This is not for the faint of heart. This is not for someone who is looking for just an enjoyable story. Let me tell you, it is really paying off in terms of me liking the book, but it is not an easy read, and it has kind of been occupying my brain for the past 48 hours. but this book is kind of a story within a story within a story. I definitely think I'm doing a full review on this book, but the bare bones of it is a old man who is now dead was writing a book about a movie video sequence of this guy whose house is larger on the inside than it is on the outside, and also following the life of the person who is now in possession of this book that the old man wrote and is kind of completing it. This book kind of gets under your skin, and I wouldn't say that the content itself is what is scary. I think it's more that you become so invested in the book and the amount of effort that it takes to read it that it really kind of just takes over your mind. I don't know, when I do a full review, I will definitely go more into depth than that, but if you're looking for something that is unlike anything you've ever read, this might be an interesting one to pick up. All right, let's move along to classics, like classic fall, autumn books. My favorite, Dracula. I have to recommend that one. Something about this book is just, to me, I don't know what it is. I think it's so funny, and I know that I'm like the only one who thinks that, but I love this book so much. It is the foundation for how vampires are presented today. And I think what people don't know about it when they start reading it, it isn't a novel that follows one protagonist and it's not like narrated by the protagonist. We are reading found things. So it's like journals, letters, newspaper clippings, stuff like that, which I think is a really great way to set up the ambiance of this book and the way that the characters interact, because everything is so unreliable, because we're hearing the thoughts of people through their journal or through letters to other people. I don't know, I just thought it was brilliant. If you like vampires and you want to read the original vampire, it's just such a great fall book. It brings all of the gothic Halloween-esque vibes, and it's like my favorite classic. So the next classic I want to talk about is Phantom of the Opera, which is fairly short, especially in comparison to some of the other classics. And if you're like me and you're a huge fan of musical theater and you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. It has all of the creepy vibes of the Phantom. He's so much worse in the book than he is in the musical, so just like prepare yourselves for that. But I really, really loved this book. It is at its heart a love story, but it is still this kind of like gothic tale of Christine's story, and it's just so beautiful. And I think it really holds up in terms of readability. It's fairly easy to stick with it and understand what's going on. So if you're into classics or you just want to kind of dip your toe into it and you want something that kind of fits the season, I really do think Phantom of the Opera is a great way to go, especially if you're already familiar with the subject material through the musical or the movie or whatever. In a similar vein is The Picture of Dorian Gray, where this is another classic that I think reads really easily. It's been a long time since I read this one, and honestly, I can't remember how well the material holds up in a 21st century world. But this book does follow the story of a man named Dorian, who is very beautiful and vain. He has this portrait created of him by his friend Basil, and it kind of follows his descent into madness, kind of like this like sinful life. And I don't want to give too much away. I know it's a classic and a lot of people have already read it, but it's just a really interesting read, and it's fairly short, and I would say the material itself is very easy to read. It's not a dense book in my opinion, so I would definitely recommend this one. To me, it has a lot of autumn vibes because it's not like a dark novel, but there's some dark undercurrents happening beneath it, which I think is like perfect for the season. The last classic I have for this list is Alice in Wonderland. And I just kind of threw this one on here because there's like two sides to this season, right? Where you have the people who really love the horror, the creepiness, this kind of like dirty, guttural aesthetic of like graveyards and everything. But then there's also this like really magical feeling about this time of year, right? Where like the winds are changing, the leaves are so colorful and beautiful. It's just like this sense of magic in the air, and I get that same kind of like whimsical sense of magic through Alice in Wonderland. Again, I haven't read this in a really long time. I know that Lewis Carroll is not like the greatest guy ever. I actually listened to it on audiobook. Very whimsical and magical. Something about it brings out this childlike joy and nostalgia that I also have every time it's Halloween, and it just kind of reminds me of that feeling of childhood magic for this time of year. Okay, moving on from classics, we're gonna move straight away into contemporary books for the autumn. The first one I want to talk about is Gallant, and I did do a full review on this one. This book is pretty polarizing because people either love it or hate it, but I will say the essence and ambiance of this book is so fall. This book to me is the feeling of October, if you like that kind of creepier underbelly of this time of year. It's kind of got that feeling of like decaying trees or, you know, ink splattered pages. Like, I don't know, there's just something about it that's just very fall-esque, and I would definitely recommend it if you are not too keen on plot but love vibes. I think I said the same thing in my review, so definitely could be a great one for people, but don't expect too much to be happening. It's much more about like where they are versus what they're doing. In a similar but kind of different vein, I have Hotel Magnifique, which I also have done a full review on if you're interested in checking that out. This book is super magical and I loved it. I devoured it in like a day. It was one of my most, if not my most, anticipated book of the year, where this magical hotel travels every night to a different part of the world, and our main character and her sister end up getting jobs, and it ends up being maybe not what they thought it would be. I don't know, it was just super magical. It's again got those kind of like dark undercurrents with this very bright, beautiful setting. There's a little bit of romance in it, not a ton, but it is there, but it really is about the love of the sisters, in my opinion, and set in this very interesting magical world. Moving away from magic, I want to talk about Truly Devious. This is a kind of like dark academia thriller-esque kind of book. I didn't know what I was getting into when I first read it, and I thought it started slow, but by the end I was really hooked on it, and everyone's back in school now, and so I think this might be a really great one if you love dark academia. Our main character is going away to this very prestigious kind of like boarding school-esque type place, and she is there because she has this interest in the murders that happened many, many years ago. And no one has been able to solve what happened, and she wants to be the one to solve it. While that is happening, some other pretty not so great things start happening. I know this is also the first book in the series. I have not read the rest of it, so I'm not really sure what happens beyond what happens in this book. But I thought it was a really fun read and definitely has that kind of back to school, fall, autumn, while still like really pulling on that kind of dark Halloween-y vibes with the murder and everything. And the last book I want to talk about today is The Atlas Six. This book was a really, really popular book talk book, and I have to say it didn't live up to the hype for me, but I know that a lot of people really, really love this book. It is also dark academia. I will say, like, plot aside, the grittiness of this book is also very, very autumn-esque. Like, you read it and you're just like, yep, that's exactly what I'm thinking. For me, though, this suffered from the same thing Gallant suffered from, where it's mainly vibes, no plot, and I thought it was a little complicated and messy for what it was. There's a huge cast of characters, it's super diverse, there's a lot of LGBTQ representation in it, which is amazing, and I love having that in all my books. However, like I said, plot not super duper there, but it is a nice read to be next to the window on a chilly fall day with like your cup of coffee. It would be a really good book for that. I'm realizing I'm not doing a really good job explaining what these books are about beyond vibes, and I'm so sorry. I just get excited, but I don't want to reveal anything in case people want to just figure it out for themselves. Sometimes I'm the absolute worst at recommending books, I swear. And there you have it. Those are 10 of my favorite autumn-esque vibey books for this year. If you have read any of these books, please let me know down below which are your favorite. As always, I love hearing from all of you down in the comments. It brings me so much joy seeing everyone here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. It really, really helps me out. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.